Hello and welcome. In this exciting episode, I make a beige Chanel style jacket. It's actually beige. It looks kind of whitish or cream, but it's beige. It's perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Perfect jacket. So here we have my pile of beige fabrics. They're just so exciting, I know. But I like them, and eventually I will make them all up into jackets. So this is the pattern I'll be using, the V7975. It's their most popular jacket pattern. I actually bought my copy about 13 years ago, and I have literally, because I trace it out and make a few changes to it, and I've been using the exact same pattern for all this time. So yeah. Value per pattern, I've well and truly got my money out of this pattern. And I do the cropped one. I think it's C, the brown one, this one here. I crop it a little higher and widen the neckline a little. And also I hate sleeves that sit right on the shoulder. So I've brought them in a little so that they're actually over the shoulder, not on the shoulder. But I alter them at the princess seam in the middle of the front and back, not on the shoulder. So my outer layer is the tweed. My structural layer is this netting. I'm using blue so that you can see it. Normally, if you're making a cream or a white or a beige, obviously you would use a beige or a cream or a white. And my lining is silk, of course. I don't know why people use anything other than silk for lining. If you're going to go to the bother of making a jacket, hand making something, then yeah, that you're going to have forever, then yeah, I definitely think you should use silk for your lining, in my opinion. So some people have asked me to actually show you how I lay out the pieces. So this is it. You sort of go with the grain, whichever way you choose you want your pieces. These bits here on the end are the inside. So they're the front bit of the lining is actually made of tweed. So yeah, once I cut out all the outer jacket bits, I'll open it back out and then I'll cut out the two lining tweed bits. You can see here I've cut all the outer bits and I've opened out this bit and I've got enough room to cut out the two tweed front lining bits. And I'm just going to cut them out. And there's also a tiny little bit that goes on it's the yoke for the back of the lining. And after I cut out these two, I cut out that one as well. So yeah, I'm not sure why I felt that I needed quite so much footage of this. This is the yoke bit up here. It's, yeah, so it's just at the top and then the rest of the back is the silk. So now that everything is cut out, it's time to lay everything down. So first of all, I lay down the netting piece and so the structural layer all in order right along the workbench, or if you're working on the floor, then just I just find it really easy if you've got a big area just to lay out all the pieces all at once, because tweeds can often look exactly the same, the front and back. But if you lay all the pieces out in the order that they go together, then you know that you haven't accidentally got two left arms and you haven't accidentally got two right side fronts. You've got one half is left, one half is right, and it's all in the correct order and they're all around the right way. So as you can see, I pinned the two layers to each other, the tweed layer and the structural layer, and then I sort of flip it over onto the piece that it's going to be pinned to, and then I pin all four layers together. It takes a little longer, but it means that everything is right. And when you're doing the sleeves, it's easier to pin the shorter side of the sleeve. If it's a two-piece sleeve, it's easier to pin the shorter one than the longer one, because the longer side is where your elbow bends. So there's a bit of a difference between those two bits, and you have, yeah. So my tip is to do the short side first, the straight to the straight, and then do the one with the elbow bend in it. So once you've got everything pinned, it is time to machine sew them. And once you've got your, so what I've done is I've done sewn the 3 left front pieces together, 3 right front pieces together. I've sewn both sleeves, and I've sewn all 3 back pieces together. So now I will set aside the sleeves for a moment, and we will focus on the torso of the jacket. So here we have the back on the right hand side. We have, yeah, this bit here, we have the back 3 pieces, and this on the left here is the front of the jacket. It's in 2 halves. So what I have to do is sew the tops together. So now we have one whole torso of the jacket, but the sides aren't done. So I've just sewn them together, or pinned them together at the top, and now they just have to be machine sewn together. The seam in the middle is quite bulky, but yeah, so just make sure you sew that straight, that line. And then once they're sewn together, it's time to pin all the seam allowances back and hand stitch them down on all the pieces. And also as you can see from the big pin hat pin type pins there, I also pinned the tweed layer to the structural layer, and then I just hand sew them together. And yeah, it takes a while, but in my opinion, it's totally worth it. And over the shoulder bit, I also put an extra layer of tweed and an extra layer of the netting, and that just sort of helps reinforce the shoulders. Once the shoulder reinforcement's done, pin the sides together, machine sew them, turn back, pin back the seam allowance, hand stitch that down as well. And then eventually the whole torso and the sleeves is done. And then I just turned up the hem and hand stitch that down, turned up the cuffs on the sleeves and hand stitch them down. Of course, you can do it later, but it's much easier to do it before you attach the sleeves, in my opinion. Next, pin the sleeves, so set the sleeves, and oh, look at that. All that hand stitching takes forever, but it produces a beautiful sleeve. Next, you have to pin down the seam allowance on the inside and hand stitch it down. I do 2 layers of hand stitching. A lot of people complain that when they make a jacket, the sleeves fall apart. And I think it's just because they don't finish them the right way, or also I think they cut too much off. Always leave as much seam allowance as possible, and flip the seams into the sleeve and then just stitch it down. So first time round, I go from the outside, but as you can see, I wiggled my fingers and I have them inside, and I just stitch it down from that side. And then once I've done that, I turn the whole thing carefully inside out, and I just stitch down the seam allowance from the inside. As you can see here, it's I mean, it's not the most glamorous thing, but you're just going to cover it in silk lining anyway. But anyway, it's a really sturdy way of finishing your sleeves. So once that's done, pop it on the mannequin, and it's time to make the lining. And you pin the lining to those 2 inside tweed bits, then sew it in on the inside, then turn the whole thing inside out and sew the neckline. Then turn it back in the correct way after you've clipped the curves, and then you have to top stitch down the rider up the front, around the neckline and down the front again. And then I'm going to bead mine, so I'm going to leave the silk open. But if you're just making a plain tweed jacket with no embellishment, then the next final step is to pin the lining. So you just turn the bottom under and then hand stitch that down. And you also have to do the same for the inside of the cuffs. And then your jacket is done. And also if you want that sort of classic Chanel thing of having a chain around the inside. If you go to the jewellery or hobby section of a fabric store or a hobby store, then they will have that chain link. They should have it there. And it just goes at the bottom of the silk section, right round the back of the jacket. And you just hand stitch that in. But I add weight to my jackets by beading them. So I've got some beige beads, some greyish ones, some cream ones, and I've also got ivory pearls. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to put on this yet. And this is from the side. Oh, look at those shoulders. That's how I judge a jacket. And yeah, this is the back, obviously. And here's the front. It's not the most flattering light. It's actually nicer than it looks in this. But yeah, that's how you make your jacket. It's basically just a whole bunch of hand stitching with the occasional long seam sewn by a machine. So yeah, it does take ages, but then you have a jacket that you're going to be able to have in your wardrobe literally for the rest of your life. So I think it's a good investment in time. So anyway, thank you for watching, and sorry about the horrible lighting and having to shoot at night. I had other stuff to do, so sorry about that. Next tweed jacket I'll make sure I leave time to shoot it the next day in daylight. I'm thinking beading wise, I think I might use beige, but I might also put some green beads in there too. I've already got the Yoda jacket, but I'd like something that's similar but a little variation on that. With this one, I might use beige and green sort of mixed together, I think. Maybe, or maybe not. I don't know. I tend to change my mind about 10 times before I actually get around to beading something. I quite enjoy sort of thinking about all the possibilities. Anyway, thank you again for watching, and go make yourself a Chanel style tweed jacket.